It's Monday, the 30th of August 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer, and if 5 minutes isn't enough, then find more news and interviews in our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed. In today's headlines, the states and federal government agree on a way to reopen economies, but it isn't going to happen anytime soon for Victoria and New South Wales. Plus, Apple takes on the Commonwealth Bank over payments. The federal government's popularity tumbles, but the Prime Minister is still the preferred leader. And the steam comes out of the housing market, but there's still plenty of buyers out there. Our lead story today, the National Cabinet has agreed on vaccination targets to allow a lifting of restrictions and lockdowns, ending weeks of debate among states and the federal government about the path out of the COVID crisis. Under the plan, once 70% of people are vaccinated, lockdowns are less likely. At 80%, lockdowns will be targeted and arrival caps will be lifted. The final phase will allow international borders to reopen. Almost 19 million jabs have been administered and just over 1/3 of all Australians are fully vaccinated, while 57% have had one jab. The numbers in New South Wales, where the virus has hit hardest in recent weeks, are higher, with 36% fully vaccinated and 66% having had one jab. The state reported more than 1,200 cases yesterday, to go with the more than 1,000 on Saturday. Victoria recorded 92 new cases yesterday, the highest of the current outbreak. Its lockdown was due to end this week, but that's not happening. Premier Daniel Andrews said there was still a chance that the state could get back to 0 cases, and he also lashed out at New South Wales getting extra vaccines. The ACT reported 13 cases yesterday. Every Monday seems like the Monday before at the moment. More cases, more argy-bargy over vaccines. At least vax rates are rising quickly. That's the only way out of this crisis. In overseas news, Wall Street hit new records over the weekend after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said the central bank would pull back on monetary stimulus later this year, but only very slowly. He indicated that while there was more inflation in the economy, the sharp pickup recently was transitory, and the employment market in the world's biggest economy was improving. There are still 6 million fewer jobs in the US economy than before the pandemic. The United States launched a drone strike to protect the Kabul evacuation effort overnight, with the US military saying it carried out a self-defense airstrike on a vehicle which posed an imminent ISIS-K threat to the international airport. ISIS-K is the group that claimed responsibility for a suicide bombing late last week that killed 100 Afghans and 13 US troops. And more than 80% of Singaporeans have now been fully vaccinated, and the city-state is now opening up economic and social activities and allowing some quarantine-free travel. Malls and cinemas are reopening, workplaces can have up to 50% of employees, and dining in restaurants is allowed. For many Australians, that seems so far away. Locally, Apple has accused Commonwealth Bank boss Matt Comyn of making misleading and false statements about Apple Pay and the technology giant's business in Australia. Mr. Comyn last month told a parliamentary hearing that the bank should get access to the iPhone chip that allows payments, adding that the tech giant should be regulated because it was operating as a payment system. Meanwhile, the Financial Review is reporting this morning that Treasurer Josh Frydenberg would have the power to force Apple and others, such as Google Pay, to open up their digital wallets under a new proposal. The Treasurer is quoted as saying if nothing is done, Silicon Valley could determine the future of Australia's payment system. More than $13 billion in payments from JobKeeper went to businesses last year that recorded increases in revenue during the first 6 months of the program, according to the Parliamentary Budget Office. It triggered claims of waste by the federal opposition. Almost 196,000 companies that received payments posted a rise in revenue. The scheme was designed in a rush and aimed to get money out the door quickly to help businesses. It did a good job, but it was very expensive. Popular support for the federal coalition has fallen to its lowest level since the last election, with smaller parties benefiting, according to the latest news poll in the Australian newspaper. But personal support for the Prime Minister Scott Morrison has lifted. The coalition's primary vote has fallen to 36% and Labor is at 40%. On a two-party preferred basis, Labor leads 54 to 46%, the largest lead since the May 2019 election. The housing market is chugging along, not quite like it was, but there's still plenty of buyers. Over the weekend, nearly 2/3 of scheduled Melbourne auctions were pulled, according to the Financial Review, and more than half of Sydney homes sold ahead of time. The weighted average clearance rate of auctions was just 55%, the lowest since April last year, at the height of the pandemic. That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. Make sure you hit follow so you get it every morning and search for our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed. We also release a daily interview. Today, it's all about picking stocks after reporting season. Don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter, or go to fearandgreed.com.au. I'll be back later with the afternoon market report. I'm Sean Aylmer. Have a great day.